The influence of normal range percentages of glucose energy on multiple diabetes complications. Number 1406, VMT Sharp 737, TDA Sharp 020, October 27, 2025. Gerald C. EclaireMD Foundation. Category: Diabetes complications. Preface: My body weight crossed the overweight threshold, defined as a BMI of 25.0, about 170 pounds, in 1985 at age 38. 5 years later, by 1990, at age 43, I fainted at the Hong Kong airport due to hypoglycemia, and was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes in Taiwan, after a random glucose test showed a level over 300 mg per deciliter. In 1994, at age 47, I suffered 2 cardiac episodes caused by business, stress and diabetes while serving as president of a high-tech company in Silicon Valley. During the following decade, I experienced a total of 5 heart episodes, and was hospitalized 5 times. After achieving one of the highest CEO performances in the technology sector, I decided in 2002, at age 55, to sell my established and successful semiconductor company to save my own life. Looking back, this was one of the brightest decisions I ever made. Choosing health and life over power, fame, and money that most people spend their lives chasing. However, my misery did not end there. Lacking knowledge about diabetes, its complications, and proper lifestyle management, I continued to depend heavily on medications. For 2 decades, from 1990 through 2010, I followed doctors' prescriptions faithfully, but blindly, allowing various chemical compounds to enter my body, in an attempt to control diabetes, hypertension, and hyperlipidemia. Only once, in 1998, did a doctor mention lifestyle control to me. But, when I asked him what that meant, his answer was to make appointments with a nutritionist and an exercise therapist at the hospital. When I looked at him, I noticed he was more obese than I was. That was the first time I became aware of the poor health condition of many American physicians. Later, I learned that more than 44% of male physicians in the United States are overweight or obese. Unpracticed teachers have no right to lecture their students. One should not tell others to do what they cannot do themselves. By 2010, I had already suffered from diabetic retinopathy, eye disease, neuropathy, nerve damage reaching near amputation level, and the worst, nephropathy, severe kidney disease, that required frequent dialysis. This was my wake-up call. I remembered how my brother-in-law had died within 3 years after starting kidney dialysis, due to his long-term diabetes. That tragedy made me realize that my ignorance of T2D, and reliance on medications without lifestyle intervention, would have taken my life within another 3 to 5 years. After being overweight for 25 years and diabetic for 20 years, I finally understood the danger of depending solely on physician device and drugs, without personal effort to manage my own lifestyle details comprehensively. Since 2010, I have developed my own custom medical AI software on iPhone that collects, analyzes, and integrates data related to 10 major health categories. These include food portion, overall quantity, food quality, especially carbohydrate and sugar intake, hydration, walking steps, sleep hours and quality, stress management, for blood pressure, and daily life routine management, consistency and quality. In addition, it tracks 4 major biomarkers, such as body weight, BMI, waistline, visceral fat ratio, glucose metrics, FPG, PPG, EAG, hemoglobin A1C, glucose waveforms and energies, TIR, TAR, TBR, and 3 glucose energies, across 3 ranges of hyper, normal, and hypo, blood pressures, SBP, DBP, HR, PP, MAP, and lipids, LDL, HDL, total cholesterol, and triglycerides. Within past 16 years, from 2010 through 2025, I have collected and computed more than 4 million data points. This big dataset reflects 2 distinct phases of my T2D journey. The first 20 years of drug dependency, from 1990 to 2010, which caused 91% of the total damage on my recent stroke, and the following 16 years of drug-free lifestyle control, from 2010 to 2025, which contributed only 9% of additional damage on my recent stroke. My recent first hemorrhagic stroke on June 21, 2025, was resulted from my long-term type 2 diabetes induced my cerebral microvascular calcification, which made the small brain vessels fragile, combined with an acute hypertensive episode of 175 mm of mercury that day. The bright white dots visible on my CT scan further confirmed that the stroke originated from my type 2 diabetes, especially during my first 20 years of medication dependence without lifestyle management. I hope this long personal journey of suffering and learning gives readers a clear understanding of the dangers of diabetes complications. They are both severe and life-threatening. I am now 79 years old, and since becoming ill at age 38, I have suffered for exactly half of my life. Yet I also gained invaluable lessons that led me to exchange fame, power, and wealth for something far more important: health and life itself. Through my own pain and learning, I wish to show that knowledge, discipline, and self-management can restore both health and dignity, even after nearly 4 decades of suffering. At this point, I would like to express my sincere appreciation to the Stanford University healthcare system. Except for my obesity, diabetes, and cardiovascular diseases, all of my other medical crises have been treated under its care, allowing me to survive one crisis after another. My mother, an ethnic Asian, died at age 82 from diabetes-induced multiple organ failure. My brother-in-law, an American from Wisconsin, died at age 46 from the same cause. These 2 cases prove that diabetes does not discriminate by ethnicity, age, or gender. Introduction. Obesity and type 2 diabetes, T2D, are 2 tightly connected metabolic disorders that initiate a chain reaction of cellular, vascular, and systemic damage. The excess accumulation of visceral fat leads to insulin resistance, chronic inflammation, and oxidative stress. These processes cause prolonged hyperglycemia, endothelial dysfunction, and progressive injury to small and large blood vessels throughout the body. Over time, these same mechanisms are responsible for the development of many complications I have personally suffered, including cardiovascular disease, nephropathy, neuropathy, and retinopathy. At the microscopic level, insulin resistance and high glucose concentration accelerate glycation of proteins and lipids, forming advanced glycation end products, AGEs. These AGEs stiffen vessel walls, impair nitric oxide signaling, and reduce tissue perfusion, resulting in ischemia and structural degeneration. In the kidneys, glomerular capillaries become scarred and lose filtration capacity. In peripheral nerves, microvascular insufficiency causes axonal damage and sensory loss. In the retina, fragile capillaries rupture, leading to vision impairment. When these vascular injuries occur within the brain, they manifest as microvascular calcification, loss of perfusion stability, and cognitive decline, eventually linking T2D with dementia. Similarly, prolonged metabolic stress also increases the risk of cancer. Chronic inflammation promotes DNA damage and accelerates abnormal cell growth. Hyperinsulinemia and elevated IGF-1 stimulate cell proliferation while inhibiting apoptosis, creating an internal environment favorable for tumor initiation and progression. In this sense, diabetes and obesity share the same biological foundation as cancer: an imbalance of energy, metabolism, impaired cellular repair, and chronic systemic inflammation. In summary, obesity and T2D are not isolated conditions, but central drivers of multiple organ failures. They gradually transform the body's metabolic and vascular systems into a fragile, energy imbalance state that increases vulnerability to nearly all major chronic diseases, including heart disease, kidney failure, dementia, and cancer. I hope the above short pathophysiological explanation provides a clear overall picture of why I developed so many diabetes-related complications. Fortunately, I have shown no signs of dementia or cancer yet. These 2 diseases are the ones I fear the most because their damage occurs at the cellular level and is largely irreversible. Unlike dementia and cancer, most other diabetic complications involve organ damage, which can at least be partially reversed through disciplined lifestyle management. In summary, chronic hyperglycemia, long-lasting high glucose levels, causes glycation, oxidative stress, and endothelial damage, leading to multi-organ complications such as neuropathy, nerves, retinopathy, eyes, nephropathy, kidneys, and heart diseases. Dementia and cancer differ because their injuries occur at the cellular level. Neuron loss in the brain and DNA mutation in tissues, which are largely irreversible. In contrast, most diabetic complications involve organ damage that can be partially reversed through strict lifestyle and metabolic control, but cellular damage cannot. Above explanation is entirely correct. From a pathology and physiology standpoint, it clearly distinguishes systemic organ damage, partially reversible, from cellular level damage, mostly irreversible. VMT analysis, single output strain. In order to study the general diabetic complications, I decided to use the normal simple glucose energy range, N, SGE%, a proxy for T2D complications risk, as my output strain. This N, SGE% is calculated by normal SGE, time points, multiplied by the averaged glucose values at those time points, divided by the total daily SGE at 96 glucose measurements for each day using Libre CGM device. I selected normal glucose energy percent, from 70 to 150 mg per deciliter, as the universal strain variable for all diabetic complications, because it represents metabolic stability rather than damage. It measures how long the body stays within the safe glucose range, reflecting protection against endothelial injury and organ stress. In contrast, hyperglycemia, about 10% in my case, reflects only the extreme damage zone, useful for stroke or CVD studies, but too limited for general diabetes modeling. From an energy perspective, the normal glucose energy percent covers the entire viscoplastic field, providing a complete picture of total body stress. Using this as a unified strain variable enables consistent VMT modeling across all complications, retinopathy, nephropathy, neuropathy, cardiomyopathy, and MASH, while keeping the same four stressors: FPG, VF%, food portion, and carbs and sugar. Of course, as a T2D patient, I must also monitor hypoglycemia percent, less than 1% in my case, since it can cause sudden death, especially during sleep at night. 4 input stressors. Furthermore, I selected the following 4 input stressors. Core diabetes influencers. 1. FPG, fasting plasma glucose, reflects pancreatic beta cell function of insulin. 2. VF%, visceral fat percent, reflects insulin, resistance and metabolic inflammation. 3. Food portion size, food quantity of M9A variable in my AI model, represents overall caloric intake. 4. Carbs and sugar intake grams main driver of glucose fluctuation. VMT analysis results. Regarding the VMT and TDA data preparation, one important note should be mentioned first. I began using the Libre CGM device in 2018 to collect 96 glucose readings per day. However, in my VMT calculations, the first year's data must serve as the initial condition, meaning it is set to 0 as the starting point. To avoid wasting the valuable 2018 dataset, I guesstimated the 2017 strain data by assuming that the strain rate of change between 2017 and 2018 was identical to that between 2018 and 2019. This assumption preserved the full use of the 2018 data while maintaining consistency in the overall annual trend. Since the strain rate of change over time is the most important characteristic in both VMT and TDA modeling, this allowed me to preserve the real 2018 data for a complete VMT energy analysis, while maintaining a mathematically smooth and consistent longitudinal trend for both VMT and TDA models. In short, I mathematically created a synthetic 2017 baseline to keep my model continuous and physically meaningful, without losing my first true measurement year. 2018 VMT model interpretation. Each stressor applies metabolic pressure on the retinal microvasculature. The viscoplastic energy area quantifies cumulative stress load over time. By comparing energy shares, I can tell which factor most drives retinal strain. 2 major VMT findings. First, the VMT energy contribution ratios for each influential factor are: FPG is 28%, VF% is 25%, food portion is 21%, carbs and sugar grams is 26%. This shows that FPG is the most important input because it directly reflects insulin function, which is the defining characteristic of diabetes. Visceral fat is usually associated with obesity, but it also influences diabetes, though not as strongly as the FPG-insulin relationship. In addition, carbohydrate and sugar intake affect diabetes more directly than food portion size, which primarily influences body weight. Second, the line chart of both the strain normal simple glucose energy percentage, I.E.N., SGE percent, and cumulative VMT energy over the past 9-year period from 2017 through 2025, clearly shows that the year 2021 marked a turning point. In that year, the strain of N, SGE percent reached 91%, and cumulative VMT energy reached 97%. After 2022, both strain and energy stabilized at healthy and steady levels. Note on VMT, this same 4 input, 1 output, VMT structure applies to all major diabetic complications, neuropathy, nephropathy, cardiomyopathy, and MASH, because they share the same root cause: chronic hyperglycemia and metabolic stress damaging microvascular and neural tissues. Cardiomyopathy literally means heart muscle disease. Cardio is heart, myo is muscle, pathy is disease. It represents the mechanical and energetic failure of the heart due to long-term metabolic and hemodynamic stress. Precisely analyzable through the VMT framework, the normal glucose energy percent, from 70 to 150 mg per deciliter, serves as the common strain variable, reflecting how long the body remains within its physiological range. When this ratio falls, all tissues, retina, kidney, nerves, myocardium, experience cumulative viscoplastic strain from glucose toxicity and oxygen imbalance. From the VMT perspective, stressors is metabolic load, FPG, VF%, food portion, C and S grams. Strain is deviation from homeostasis, normal glucose energy percent. Energy area is accumulated, irreversible tissue stress. Thus, one unified VMT model can describe all complications by assigning different physiological meanings to the strain output. Retina, DR, nerves, neuropathy, kidney, CKD, heart, CVD cardiomyopathy, and liver, MASH, NAFLD. This forms a consistent and scientifically grounded metabolic complications master model for diabetes. TDA analysis results. The same dataset in VMT model analysis was used to analyze geometrical configuration changes using the topological data analysis (TDA) framework. Each year's data point, FPG, VF%, food, portion, and C and S grams, represents a four-dimensional coordinate in this feature space. First, principal component analysis, PCA, was applied to simplify the data into three main orthogonal axes, PC1, PC2, and PC3. PC1 represents the dominant metabolic direction or the overall energy trend. PC2 defines the secondary balance between variables, while PC3 captures minor physiological adjustments. The 2D PC diagram, PC1 versus PC2, shows a clear geometric contraction pattern from 2017 through 2025. The earlier years, such as from 2017 to 2019, are located farther from the center, reflecting unstable and unbalanced metabolic conditions. In contrast, the later years, particularly from 2022 to 2025, form a compact and stable cluster near the origin, confirming a well-regulated and consistent metabolic state. 2021 is the turning point year. The 3D scatter diagram, PC1, PC2, PC3, further illustrates this contraction trajectory. The overall geometric shape shrinks and aligns toward a stable region after 2021, indicating that systemic stress across all four factors, FPG, VF%, food, portion, and C and S grams, has gradually diminished. Again, 2021 is the turning point year. A combined polar chart was constructed using data from 2018, 2021, and 2025 to visualize shape evolution over time. The 2018 shape, blue, shows a large and uneven area, representing an early unbalanced state with high energy stress. The 2021 shape, red, demonstrates noticeable contraction and symmetry improvement, marking the transitional stage of stabilization. Finally, the 2025 shape, green, becomes smaller and more uniform, symbolizing an optimized and balanced metabolic condition among all stressors. The area difference between 2021 and 2025 is much smaller than the area difference between 2018 and 2021. Again, 2021 is the turning point year. These three geometric diagrams show the same finding as the VMT energy diagrams. 2021 is the turning point year. The PCA coordinate data below also support this observation, confirming a progressive and continuous contraction pattern that aligns perfectly with the VMT analysis results, identifying 2021 as the turning point year toward long-term stabilization and recovery. Year PC1, PC2, PC3. 2017 2.6109.03920.3885, 2018 2.3440-0.8868-0.3639, 2019 1.511520.5952.0.5486, 2020 0.3736-0.1409-0.2650, 2021-0.5652-0.4704-0.1501, 2022-1.7878-1.8607-0.7833, 2023-0.8771-0.0045-0.0205, 2024-1.252-1-0.7293-0.3555, 2025-2.3654-1.5065-0.4346. Conclusion. This longitudinal study confirms that both the viscoplastic medicine theory, VMT, and the topological data analysis, TDA, models reveal the same fundamental truth. The year 2021 marked a decisive metabolic turning point in my diabetes complications recovery process. Before 2021, the body was trapped in a high-stress, unstable phase dominated by chronic hyperglycemia, visceral fat accumulation, and poor energy balance. After 2021, the continuous reduction of these stressors led to metabolic stabilization and long-term improvement across multiple complications. The VMT energy model quantified the cumulative effects of four key stressors: FPG, VF%, food portion, and carbohydrate and sugar intake, on the strain, variable, normal glucose energy percent. Their relative energy contributions, 28%, 25%, 21%, and 26%, clearly demonstrate that glucose control, particularly FPG, the insulin state, remains the central determinant of all diabetic complications. The total viscoplastic energy curve and strain trajectory both plateaued after 2021, indicating that irreversible damage was largely contained. and that recovery mechanisms had become dominant. The TDA geometric analysis independently verified this physics-based conclusion. Both the 2D PC diagram and the 3D scatter diagram showed a visible contraction of geometric space over time, reflecting the system's return toward metabolic equilibrium. The polar chart confirmed the same result visually. The shape evolved from large and distorted in 2018 to compact and symmetric in 2025. This convergence pattern corresponds directly to the reduction of cumulative viscoplastic energy in the VMT model. Together, these two different research methods form a unified interpretation of diabetes progression and reversal. The VMT framework quantifies metabolic stress as cumulative energy, while the TDA framework visualizes structural stability as geometric contraction. Both approaches demonstrate that when normal glucose energy remains high and stable, meaning glucose stays between 70 and 150 mg per deciliter for more than 90% of the total, the risks of diabetic complications such as neuropathy, nephropathy, cardiomyopathy, and MASH decline sharply. This study therefore establishes a clear link between energy balance, geometric stability, and systemic recovery. It also reinforces that knowledge, discipline, and self-management are far more powerful than medications alone in preventing and reversing diabetes complications. The combined use of VMT and TDA provides a quantitative proof and visual roadmaps for understanding how chronic diseases and their complications evolve, and how they can be reversed through sustained behavioral control. Disclaimer: I write this paper not for fame, but to share what I have learned so others can understand their health, prevent disease, and live longer, healthier lives. This content is provided for educational reference only, and does not constitute medical advice. No doctor-patient relationship is created. You may share this summary freely, but it must not be altered, edited, or republished as your own. All intellectual property rights and copyrights for this article and its related materials belong to the author, Gerald C.